You want to know how the Galactic Council made its biggest mistake? Fine. Pull up a chair, or tentacle pad, or whatever your species uses. This is going to take a minute. My name is Vorath 9, and I'm what you'd call a middling bureaucrat in the Department of Penal Colony Administration. Thrilling job, right? Mostly paperwork, occasionally deciding which frozen rock gets to host the galaxy's worst criminals. But 3 cycles ago, everything changed when we encountered them, the humans. Now, before you start groaning, hear me out. I know every species thinks they are special. The Krallics claim they invented faster-than-light travel, even though we all know the Vorpians did it first. The Zenthara insist their military is unbeatable, despite losing that embarrassing war with the plant people from Sector 9. Everyone's got an ego, but humans. They are different. And not in a good way. At least, that's what we thought. The trouble started when we intercepted a human vessel in the outer reaches. Standard piracy operation, nothing fancy. The crew consisted of 12 humans who'd apparently decided that galactic shipping laws were more like suggestions. They'd been hijacking cargo freighters, stealing medical supplies, and selling them on black markets. Captain Elara Voss was their leader. Short by human standards, maybe 5.5 feet, with hair the color of rust and eyes that looked like frozen oceans. She had this smile that made you want to check if your wallet was still attached to your body. When we brought them before the council, Voss didn't even try to defend herself. She just leaned back in the detention field, grinned, and said, "Yeah, we did it. Your move, tentacle face." I should mention that was directed at Councillor Threxis, who does indeed have tentacles for a face. He was not amused. The council debated for hours. The Krallics representative wanted immediate execution. The Vorpian delegate suggested memory wiping and rehabilitation. The Zenthara, predictably, wanted to study them for military applications, but then Councillor Threxis had what he thought was a brilliant idea. "We send them to Kragoth 5, he announced, his tentacles quivering with what I can only describe as malicious glee. The chamber went silent. Even the Krallics representative, who'd been advocating for execution, looked uncomfortable. Kragoth 5. The nightmare world. The planet where we sent criminals we wanted to forget about entirely. Let me paint you a picture. Kragoth 5 sits in a binary star system, which means it gets cooked from 2 different angles. The surface temperature during day, and I use that term loosely since the planet experiences approximately 6 hours of darkness per rotation, reaches 160 degrees standard. The atmosphere is 40% carbon dioxide, 30% methane, and 30% various gases that will absolutely kill you. The native fauna includes things we've catalogued as 6-legged murder lizards, screaming death birds, and my personal favorite, the thing that eats everything including rocks. The planet has acidic rain. The water sources are contaminated with enough heavy metals to poison a Krallics battleship. There are carnivorous plants that can dissolve flesh in under 30 seconds. Volcanic activity happens roughly every 16 hours. And the gravity is 1.8 times standard, which means every step feels like you're wearing a Zenthara combat suit. We'd sent exactly 47 criminals to Kragoth 5 over the past 2 centuries. Survival rate. 0. Average lifespan after drop-off. 14 days. The planet wasn't meant to be survived. It was meant to be a slow, agonizing death sentence that we could technically say wasn't execution. The council had some weird hang-ups about that. Voss just kept smiling when they told her the sentence. "Sounds delightful," she said. "Got any brochures?" The other humans looked nervous, sure. But Voss? She looked excited. That should have been our first warning. We dropped them on Kragoth 5's northern continent, in a region we'd designated as marginally less lethal. That meant it only had 3 species of things actively trying to kill you instead of 7. We gave them standard survival packs, water purification tablets, useless on Kragoth 5, emergency rations, enough for maybe a week, basic medical supplies, also mostly useless, and a transponder beacon in case they wanted to. "I don't know," apologized before dying. The dropship pilot, a Vorpian named Kelix, reported that Voss gave him a cheerful wave as they descended into that hellscape. "She actually winked at me," he told me later, clearly disturbed. Who winks at their executioner? We forgot about them. Honestly, we did. I filed the paperwork, noted the expected date of transponder silence, estimated 10 to 15 days, and moved on to other cases. 14 days passed. The transponders stayed active. Equipment malfunction, Threxis said, waving a tentacle dismissively. The harsh environment probably preserved the electronics even after their deaths. 20 days. Still active. 30 days. Now people were paying attention. By day 60, the entire department was monitoring those signals. All 12 transponders, still functioning, still moving around the planet's surface. Not just staying in one spot like they'd built a shelter, and were slowly starving. No, these signals were all over the northern continent. "Send a reconnaissance drone," Threxis ordered, his tentacles twitching with what I'd learned to recognize as nervousness. The drone footage came back 3 days later, and I still have nightmares about the moment we watched it. The humans hadn't just survived. They'd thrived. They'd constructed a settlement near one of the acidic rivers. And when I say constructed, I don't mean a few sad shelters made from rocks. I mean actual buildings with walls and roofs, organized in a grid pattern, with what appeared to be a central plaza. They'd somehow filtered the water, because we could see irrigation channels leading to garden plots where earth plants were growing. On Kragath 5, one of the humans, a tall man with dark skin and a shaved head, later identified as Marcus Trent, had apparently domesticated 3 of the 6-legged murder lizards. They were using them to hunt the screaming death birds. Another human, a woman named Yuki Matsumoto, had set up what looked suspiciously like a laboratory in one of the buildings. The drone's thermal imaging showed she was processing local minerals into something. We still don't know what, but the absolute worst part, the thing that made Councillor Threxus's tentacles go completely rigid with shock, was the sign they'd erected in the central plaza. It was made from scrap metal, polished to a reflective shine, and it read, "Welcome to New Voss. Population, 12 and growing. Rated 4 stars by Galactic Council. Would be 5 stars if they'd dropped us somewhere challenging. Growing. We enhanced the footage and spotted a human we'd designated as Dr. Sienna Park, who'd been the ship's medic. She was visibly pregnant. That's impossible, the Kralix representative sputtered. The gravity alone should prevent conception. The radiation. The environmental stress. Humans apparently missed that memo, I muttered, watching Voss herself walk through the settlement like she was touring a resort. She was wearing handmade clothing, God knows what she'd made it from, had a 6-legged murder lizard on a leash like some kind of pet, and was drinking something from a cup that appeared to be carved from volcanic rock. The drone's audio pickup caught her talking to Trent. "You know what this place needs? A bar. I'm thinking we could ferment some of those purple fruits near the western ridge. What's the worst that could happen? We die," Trent suggested. "We were supposed to die 60 days ago. Now we're just living on borrowed time and spite. Might as well enjoy it." The council held an emergency session. 12 species, representing 47 worlds, all staring at drone footage of humans casually thriving in conditions that should have killed them a dozen times over. "This changes nothing," Threxus insisted, though his tentacles were doing that nervous twitch again. "They'll die eventually. The planet will kill them. It always does." But I could see it in every representative's eyes. The same thought I was having. What if it doesn't? What if we'd just dropped humanity's most resourceful criminals onto a planet that would forge them into something we couldn't control? Day 90 brought the real shock. The transponder signals multiplied. Not by 1 or 2, but by dozens. "Equipment malfunction," Threxus repeated, but nobody believed him anymore. We sent another drone. This time, we needed answers. The footage showed New Voss had expanded. They'd constructed what looked like a geothermal power plant using volcanic vents. The garden plots had tripled in size. There were now hunting parties going out regularly, bringing back meat from creatures that should have been apex predators. The 6-legged murder lizards weren't just domesticated, they were being bred, and there were more humans. Not 12. Not 15. 37. Captain Voss was standing in the central plaza, addressing what appeared to be the new arrivals. The drone's audio system picked up her voice, carried on Kragath 5's harsh winds. "Welcome to New Voss. I know the trip down was rough. The screaming death birds attack dropships, the gravity's a pain, and the air tastes like burning tires mixed with regret. But stick with us, follow the rules, and you'll find this place grows on you. Literally, in some cases. We're still not sure what that purple fungus does, but Yuki's working on it." Laughter. They were laughing on Kragath 5. "Where did the others come from?" the Kralix representative demanded, as if I somehow had answers. "We traced the new transponders back through our database. Prison transports. We'd been using Kragath 5 as a dumping ground for dangerous criminals for 2 centuries, and apparently, not all of them had died. The database revealed something we'd somehow missed in our meticulous record keeping. Over the past 80 years, we'd dropped 29 humans onto Kragath 5. Different crimes, different times, different regions of the planet. We'd assumed they all perished within weeks, just like every other species. We were wrong. They'd survived. Found each other. Built communities. And when Voss and her crew landed, they'd unified under her leadership, because apparently humans respect piracy skills as a form of governance qualification. "This is a catastrophe," Councillor Threxus announced, his tentacles flailing in what I'd learned was the Zenthra equivalent of panic. "We need to sterilize the planet immediately." "You want to orbital strike a penal colony?" the Vorpian delegate asked, incredulous. "The paperwork alone would take decades. The ethics committees would never approve it." "Ethics? They are breeding an army of super-adapted humans on a death world. In another generation, they'll have children who were born in that environment, raised in those conditions. Do you understand what that means? I did. We all did. Humans were already concerning enough at baseline. Humans specifically adapted to survive Kragath 5. That was the stuff of military nightmares, but here's where it gets truly bizarre. Day 112, we received a transmission. Not from the transponders. An actual, proper communication signal using galactic standard protocols. The message was simple. To whom it may concern, New Voss would like to open diplomatic relations. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Signed, Captain Elara Voss, Planetary Governor. Planetary Governor. She'd given herself a title. On a prison planet. That we'd dropped her on to die. The audacity was almost admirable. Ignore it, Threxis commanded. No response. We do not negotiate with criminals, and we certainly don't acknowledge their delusions of governance. So we ignored it. For about 3 days, then the second message arrived, and this one had attachments. High-resolution images of New Voss, now sporting approximately 70 buildings, organized streets, functioning infrastructure, and what appeared to be a large banner reading Kragath 5, where the weak die and the strong get abs. The message read, "We noticed you didn't respond to our first communication. No problem. We figured you might be busy with your tentacle grooming, or whatever it is you do up there. Attached, please find images of our growing settlement. We've also included a resource survey of the northern continent. Turns out Kragath 5 has massive deposits of trillium ore. You know, that rare element worth approximately 40,000 credits per kilogram. Yeah, we're standing on a mountain of it. Literally. We built our town hall on top of a trillium deposit. Anyway, let us know if you'd like to discuss mining rights, trade agreements, or just stop by for a visit. We make excellent volcanic rock coffee. It tastes terrible, but it's got a real kick. Best regards, Planetary Governor Voss. P.S. Tell Threxis his tentacles look lovely today. I watched Councillor Threxis turn a color I didn't know his species could achieve. This is blackmail, he hissed. No, the Vorpian delegate said slowly, reviewing the resource data. This is legitimate. These surveys are detailed, professional, and if they are accurate, Kragath 5 is sitting on enough trillium to power half the galactic fleet for a century. They are criminals. They are criminals sitting on a fortune we didn't know existed, because we were too busy using the planet as an execution ground to survey it properly. The council chambers erupted into chaos. Everyone talking at once, tentacles flailing, mandibles clicking, the whole circus. The Kraliks wanted military intervention. The Vorpians wanted negotiation. The Zenthera, surprisingly, seemed impressed. Perhaps, the Zenthera military commander suggested, we should observe further before making decisions. The humans have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. This could be valuable data. So we observed. Oh, how we observed. We sent 6 more drones over the next 30 days. Each one brought back footage that made Kragath 5 look less like a prison planet and more like a frontier colony. They'd constructed a proper geothermal power grid. The murder lizard breeding program was yielding what Yuki called third-generation domesticated variants, which were apparently gentler and responded to verbal commands. The screaming death birds had been largely driven from the settlement area, and hunting parties were bringing back enough meat to support a growing population. The volcanic rock coffee was apparently actually good. They'd figured out how to neutralize the toxic compounds and extract the caffeine-equivalent substance. Several humans were drinking it regularly with no apparent side effects, beyond increased energy, and what Marcus described as pleasantly aggressive motivation. Dr. Park had given birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Kira. The first human born on Kragath 5, delivered in 1.8 standard gravity, breathing processed atmosphere, under binary star radiation that should have caused severe mutations. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, lungs that processed the local air better than her parents could. Impossible, the council's chief xenobiologist declared. Human gestation cannot succeed in those conditions. And yet, I pointed out, watching drone footage of Voss holding baby Kira, and making faces at her while a domesticated murder lizard nuzzled them both, there she is. Day 160 brought another message. This one was different. Hello again, Council. Governor Voss here. We've been thinking about your lack of response, and we've decided to interpret it as tacit approval of our settlement. Therefore, we're formally declaring New Voss an independent colony under the protection of human common law. Don't worry, we're not starting a war or anything dramatic. We just want it on record that we're not prisoners anymore. We're colonists. Big difference. In celebration, we're holding our first annual Kragath 5 Survival Festival. There will be murder lizard races, death bird hunting competitions, and volcanic rock coffee tasting. You're all invited. Well, except Threxis. He knows what he did. Attached is our official colony charter, resource sharing proposal, and a recipe for death bird stew. It's actually delicious. You should try it. Warmest regards from the surface of your biggest mistake, Governor Voss. The recipe was detailed, professionally formatted, and included preparation tips for dealing with the death bird's acidic blood. Threxis didn't even speak. He just stared at the holographic display showing Voss waving cheerfully at the drone camera, a baby on her hip, a murder lizard at her feet, and a settlement of thriving humans behind her. We have to respond, the Vorpian delegate finally said. We can't keep ignoring this. They're not going away, and that Trillium isn't going to mine itself. If we acknowledge them, we legitimize them, Threxis countered, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. They've already legitimized themselves, I said quietly. They survived Kragath 5. That's legitimacy earned in blood, sweat, and apparently murder lizard domestication. The vote was close. 17 species for opening negotiations, 15 against, 3 abstentions. Democracy in action, folks. I was chosen to lead the diplomatic mission. Lucky me. I got to be the first council official to actually land on Kragath 5 since we'd designated it a death world. The descent was terrifying. The screaming death birds did attack, just like Voss had warned. Our pilot had to perform evasive maneuvers that made my digestive sacs rearrange themselves. The heat was oppressive even through our ship's climate control. The binary stars beat down on us like hammer blows from angry gods. We landed in New Voss's central plaza. Right next to that insulting welcome sign, Voss was waiting for us, flanked by Marcus and Yuki. She'd aged slightly, lines around her eyes from squinting in the harsh sunlight, but she looked healthier than she had in the detention facility. Stronger. The gravity had given her visible muscle definition, and her skin had developed a bronze tone from the radiation exposure. Welcome to New Voss, she said cheerfully, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Governor Vorith 9, right? I recognize you from the trial. Nice to see you again, under better circumstances. Better. I managed, feeling the oppressive gravity trying to crush me despite my exoskeleton support. You call this better? She grinned. That same unsettling grin from the trial. You get used to it. Give it a week, and you'll barely notice the gravity. The air takes longer, but Yuki developed breathing supplements that help. Come on, I'll give you the tour before we talk business. The tour was surreal. She showed us the geothermal plants, explained the water filtration system they'd engineered from scavenged drone parts and local minerals, introduced us to the domesticated murder lizards, which were surprisingly docile when properly trained, and offered us samples of death bird stew. It was actually good. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it was delicious. The secret is in the preparation, Yuki explained, her enthusiasm infectious despite my attempts to remain professionally detached. The acidic blood actually tenderizes the meat if you neutralize it properly. We've been experimenting with different cooking methods. We ended up in what Voss called the town hall, a large building with walls made from processed volcanic rock and a roof that somehow deflected the worst of the binary star heat. Inside, it was almost comfortable. Let's talk business, Voss said, pouring volcanic rock coffee into carved stone cups. You want the Trillium. We want legitimacy, supplies, and fair compensation for our labor. Seems like we can help each other. You're criminals, I said, because someone had to say it. We were criminals, she corrected. Now we're colonists who survived your execution method and turned it into a thriving settlement. I'd say we've paid our debt to society, wouldn't you? She had a point. A frustrating, undeniable point. We negotiated for 3 hours. By the end, we'd hammered out the basics. New Voss would be recognized as an independent colony with self-governance. They'd have exclusive mining rights to the northern continent's Trillium deposits, and they'd sell ore to the council at slightly below market rates in exchange for regular supply shipments and protection from potential hostile forces. One more thing, Voss said as I prepared to leave. We're expecting more dropships, aren't we? More criminals you're planning to send here. I hesitated. The council hasn't decided. When they do, let them know we're happy to accept new colonists. But they come under our rules now. We'll integrate them, train them, keep them alive. This isn't a death sentence anymore. It's a second chance. She walked me back to the landing pad, that domesticated murder lizard trailing behind her like an oversized dog. As our ship prepared for launch, she called out one last thing. Oh, and Vorith. Tell Threxis we're naming our first murder lizard breeding facility after him. The Threxis Memorial Murder Lizard Ranch. We thought he'd appreciate the honor. The flight back was quiet. My crew was processing what they'd seen. A death world transformed into a functioning colony through sheer human stubbornness, creativity, and that inexplicable drive to survive that made them so simultaneously terrifying and impressive. I filed my report. The council accepted our proposal. New Voss became officially recognized, and you know what the absolute worst part is? 6 months later, applications started flooding in. Not from criminals. From volunteers. Humans who heard about Kragath 5 and wanted to test themselves against it. They started calling it the ultimate challenge. Adventure tourism companies began offering guided expeditions. Voss sent me one final message, 3 months ago, thanks for the recognition. Business is booming. We've got 200 colonists now, 3 more settlements, and we're exporting deathbird leather to 5 systems. Also, that Threxis Memorial Ranch. Top-rated tourist attraction. People love the murder lizards. Who knew? Maybe next time you want to punish someone, try actually researching what kills them first. Just a thought. Your friend, Governor Voss. And that, my friends, is how the Galactic Council's worst punishment became humanity's most successful colony. They sent us their criminals. We gave them back entrepreneurs. Never, ever underestimate humans. Especially the crazy ones, trust me on this.